All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Eric Jr. podcast. A monster week of events. We are lagging behind on current events. We caught the Lakers game last night, though, but Eagles
Mhm.
coach, Phillies signing, boys, we're trying to play catch up here.
Yes, but what it's left us is an absolutely monster pod, a can't miss pod. I'm super excited to touch on everything here.
Boys, we live in an ever-changing and a wacky world. There is a ton that has transpired since the last time we spoke. Oh my goodness. Lakers come to town and you finally get the big test for your Sixers and they almost blow it. The Eagles hire a coach that everybody is pretty apathetic about because we got it going on. The Phillies did the right thing. They signed JT. That's a nice little sigh of relief, even if they're still not going to be okay because somebody else is better than them.
Right.
And then the world is also having some real stuff going on. So
Yes.
that's what you're walking into tonight on this Thursday evening for the EJP.
Yeah, the head coaching hire, we want to touch on it. Obviously, it happened last week, but we can't just not mention the Eagles hiring a new head coach. I mean, it'd be crazy.
Right.
It'd be crazy not to. But I'm sure all of you already have your opinion on Nick Sirianni. The Eagles have gone for that tried and true formula. They went a little on the younger end, but a guy who is underwhelming and not known by anybody outside of
Mhm.
Chip Kelly. That's been their MO. I honestly like the hire. I think it's of some of the options given where they sit, operating under the criteria they want to operate under, which is Wentz is still,
Mhm.
at the center of the franchise. If that's the path you want to take, and I can kind of understand why you would. If that's a path you want to take, a younger, offensive-oriented coach from a successful offense with a referral from a guy that you trust in Reich. Nick Sirianni, honestly, when it came down to it, as the most pro McDaniels guy on this podcast, I ended up actually being relieved that they went with him instead of McDaniels. So
Mhm.
I can't say I really dislike the hire. It could honestly work out pretty well, I think.
Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, it seems that this was pretty anticlimactic. It seems like
Yeah.
we knew about the narrative going in terms of some more talented guys either having to remain with their teams or not being interested, and I want to push back on it being a quote unquote safe pick. This guy does meet the profile. I think he answers some questions like you mentioned about Carson and about hopefully his vision. He had a good answer. Really jumped out to me he's not necessarily as brilliant like just a really smart guy. But the personality thing jumps out to me that guys he already reached out to some of the players. It's going to be really important. He's walking into a team that is, kind of is in more than a transition phase. They're in, whatever happens these next 2 years is really going to shape the franchise for, what it has available to it. So where I'm more focused at is the surrounding pieces. Some of the coordinating hires, I raised my eyebrows a little bit at those. But overall, I think it's relatively satisfying and I guess safe, but that kind of has a negative connotation. I felt pretty bad about Dougie P. So this guy, I think he's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I worry about our podcast because we've kind of over our entire friendship have kind of been talking almost every day about sports, and I feel like sometimes our opinions kind of come together and we reach a consensus. I'm glad that's not the case this time because I
Oh,
really don't like this
heel
hire.
turn.
It just rubs me in all the wrong places, gives me bad vibes. I just hate it. From all the stories about the interview to the
Well,
coordinator
what's the
hires.
story? What's the story about the interview?
Story
What's
about the
stuck in your
interview is
crawl, Cream?
he was on vacation. Uh, he gets the call for the interview. He doesn't have any business clothes. Everybody dresses down to make him feel comfortable. They ended up, the whole 9 yards of talking all day and all night, and then after the end of the meeting, that's their guy, just because they got a text message from Frank Wright with a thumbs up emoji. It just rubs me in all the wrong places. I don't quite know what this guy has done to be qualified to be a head coach, other than be hired as an offensive coordinator to a pretty good offense. Not great. They say he's a quarterback. Everybody quarterback whisperer. What quarterbacks has he whispered into exactly is my question. And then there's the thing. Then there's the thing of like making the coaching hire completely dependent on Carson Wentz. And I know he's the franchise guy. I know he's, the guy that they kind of need. But, man, he was terrible last year, man. You're not even going to entertain the idea that that was the Carson Wentz that we have moving forward. We're going to assume that this guy is like, once he fixes Carson Wentz, then everything will be good. I think that hiring a guy like Deuce Staley would have went a long way with this locker room. And I wonder if, losing Deuce, I wonder if that's going to have a negative repercussions this year down the line, if this guy doesn't come in, if they're not winning games. Because this is a really veteran team still. And this is a young guy without a lot of proven experience. I don't want to go 10 rounds on this because we'll have plenty of time to talk about it before. But and Jake brings up the correct point that a lot of people felt this way about Dougie P, and I was certainly one of them. And he turned out to be a great head coach, one who I really admired and respected. And that could easily be the case. But if we're talking about, when we talk about coaching hires, we talk about qualifications and who deserves to get jobs, and that's obviously a fool's errand. But this guy doesn't pass the sniff test, as it were. I don't like it.
Who has the right stank for you, Cream? Who does pass?
Well, I would have liked the guy. I would have liked the guy that is calling the plays for the best offense in the NFL, Eric Bieniemy. I know you can't get him until after the Super Bowl, but surely a couple of weeks for the right guy. I don't understand why they couldn't just wait. Are these 2 weeks so important for Nick that he's going to just completely revolutionize the team in 2 weeks, that we can't just wait to interview the guy who seems to be the most qualified candidate? That's what rubs me the wrong way.
It's really tough to evaluate maybe Bieniemy's value because of all the skill position players. I also think that time does matter to a degree. But what I would say is, you raise these valid concerns about it being an aging roster, and this guy maybe needing a little bit of time. It's going to be probably a rough first year, but I still think that he has a lot of potential to fit the profile. And clearly, Cream, what jumps out to me is that in the interview, he had a clear vision for how you're handling this quarterback situation, and maybe that involves, what he's targeting with Jalen Hurts, trying to trade him, building around Wentz, just using Wentz for this year and getting off that money possibly. So there's a lot of different answers he could have had, and he probably had a really good one. And that's that.
Well, he had the one that Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie wanted to hear.
A lot of guys.
What I imagine, I imagine the answer was that his answer was he's gonna fix Carson Wentz and he's gonna get 2017 Wentz back, and that was his answer, and that's what those guys wanted to hear. I don't know how else to interpret that.
Right. My last thing on it is just I think a lot of other candidates knew kind of what they wanted to hear going in, and it was a matter of if they really thought that this guy, he might not have been in charge of the play calling, but he has a plan moving forward for a very, messy setup, and it does also involve Jalen Hurts, not just Wentz. And if you want to get off the money.
It's certainly not a great position for this guy to be in with the team. It's certainly, we talked about before the hire that it wasn't a very desirable coaching position. a lot of things can go wrong with the locker room. You got the QB controversy, obviously. It's going to be a real test, I think, how this guy goes into training camp and gets the team to respond to him, because that's one of the things that I think a lot of people you hear about Bieniemy is that the players really respond to him, that he's a big time character leader guy, and that just seems like something we could have going in that direction seems to be, to me, more valuable than like a scheme guy, like who we hired. Yeah.
My response to that, Kareem, I'm not going to try and convince you
Mhm.
Sirianni's a better coach, or because I didn't know who Sirianni was before this.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
The thing I would say though is I don't think it's the 2 weeks is the difference between them hiring
Right.
him or not. I think if they were going to hire Bieniemy, they'd be waiting the 2 weeks. Like it's not.
For sure.
I just think they flat out weren't ever going to hire him, and
Right.
any rumors that said that he was in the running or whatever,
Yeah, seemed to be unfounded.
yeah, because
we didn't really.
if he's
Right.
done before the interviews, if he's done before even getting an interview, then he was never really a candidate. So
Right. That's probably true.
the other factor that does make the 2 weeks important though is more the assistants, like losing
That's fair.
every good OC and DC like off the market before you even hire your head coach is a pretty bad start. That said, I agree with you that waiting, if getting the head coach right is more important than anything else. And honestly, like Wade Phillips is still floating around out there. Like if you need
I mean,
if
who
you need a
could have?
defensive coordinator like that, a guy like that, I guess you could just pick up later on.
Well, who could have missed out? I mean, how could they have afforded to miss out on the Colts defensive backs coach that the Eagles hired? I mean, that's just a guy that everyone know was destined to be a defensive coordinator. I understand how we had to really move quickly on that.
Kareem, we're pretty in sync on that particular hire. Like the defensive coordinator, that's a very important position going alongside this dude. It's got to be somebody that like balances him out. Like I think literally both sides of the profile, like the personality and also like what he brings to the table. This dude, how many guys did they take from the Colts organization? Like 3 or 4.
Let me look.
Yeah.
Let me look. I can literally tell you right now. It's
Okay.
So I believe Jason Michael, the tight end coach.
Yeah.
I believe Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator. Is Tracy Rucker also? He's like a no, he's coming from college. I think 3 guys. I think Sirianni, Gannon, and then Jason Michael. And then the funny thing about Gannon is people are saying he looks kind of like I think Murr from like Impractical Jokers or whatever.
Oh my God.
Which is I mean, not what you want.
It's not what you want. Not what you want. You don't want to be compared to an Impractical Jokers guy before you even show up on the job.
Being compared to any of them, like with like a physical thing, that's just bad news bears. And like that's the thing, like all these guys, you look at their ages and it's like, bro, we are just all in, man. Like no one guy who's going to have a coordinator position that's like, are we sure we don't want to just go back to fundamental football and like, run this normal shit and pound the ball? And like, there's not going to be really that voice in the room.
No experience either. There's no lot of inexperience in the coaching staff, which I think is something to be, concerned about. But who knows? Like, I'm not going to say that this guy's definitely going to fail because we don't know. The coaching in the NFL to everybody is still sort of an enigma. We don't really know until guys get the job and see what they do. So on that note, I think we can move on. I'll try. I'm gonna give him a fair shake. I'm not somebody who's gonna bury him right off the bat. So I'm interested to see what he can do and what maybe new things he can bring because that is something because he is the coach. So
I guess I will say I kind of like the youth that they're
Hmm.
bringing in. I kind of like trying.
Sure.
I was probably wrong in being against the Doc Rivers hire at this point, but I was kind of lambasting it on this podcast, saying like I would rather take flyers on coaches that you think have true potential rather than always doing like retreads all the time. And so if this guy wants to hire a bunch of people in their 30s, I'm not gonna
Right.
hate on it before we actually see the results. And this
Sure.
year, man, like the other thing we gotta do is kind of give this guy a year of rope. This is a terrible position.
It's gonna be a bad roster.
This
Yeah.
is a bad
And
situation, man. This guy needs
Yeah.
probably 2 years to really know what you got.
Mm.
totally agree. And that after that first year, that's a really big deal for the Carson dead money as well. So that's also a very big factor. It's going to be a patient Eagles year. There's going to be a lot of frustrating moments.
Yeah. I think
But
we can we agree that Carson Wentz is going to be at least on the roster for the start of the season. I
yes,
think we
yes.
can with this move. I think that's pretty assured.
Yeah, and that's the hire that I was, or that's the kind of the caveat that I was like prefacing, my
Hmm.
opinion of the hire on, where it was like, given the credential or given, the caveat of like Carson is here, you're taking this job under the assumption you're coaching Carson Wentz.
Right.
Of the people that they were looking at, like Todd Bowles and McDaniels and him, um, I them landing on him, I don't mind it. Even
Yeah. He's
even if
probably the
they're
most qualified to get if you're looking at Carson Wentz in a vacuum, that is probably uh, the best guy for it. So give credit where credit's due.
all right. Yeah, we don't have too much juice on it. It's not the
It's going to be a
uh,
long off season.
it's
So
not the best. It's not the best topic right now. The Eagles are just so kind of debilitating at this point.
yes.
So
Yeah.
we'll talk about the hottest team in their respective league, the Sixers. They're hotter than GameStop right
Yo.
now. They're coming off the big
Bye,
dub.
bye, bye. Yes.
Bye, bye, bye. They are coming off of that near colossal failure against the Lakers. And
Also called a win. Also,
yeah, synonymous with a win. And they have kind of rounded into form. I believe they're 10-0 when their starting five is available for the game. What a what a
Ain't that something?
what a couple weeks this has been.
yes. I mean, that game, we all knew the storylines heading in. The Sixers have had a pretty cupcake schedule so far, and they've really looked bad on a couple of nights when they're missing Embiid. So this was an important game for the team and Joel in particular to kind of not only match up against the reigning champs and the front runner for the NBA championship this year, but also the front runner for the MVP, LeBron James. This was you know, a touchstone moment for Embiid and the Sixers, and I thought they met the challenge really well. Obviously, the fourth quarter, last 3 minutes, 11-0 run by the Lakers notwithstanding, I thought they played really well. I thought they played hard, good defense. They moved the ball on offense. Everything you want heading into a big game like this. I thought they showed out really well.
That was certainly the most entertaining game, I believe, of this year.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
lot of storylines going into it, and just the game itself. I mean, you had contributors all over it. Like, Doc's going to the bench. Doc's bringing in, Maxey, Thibault. I mean, Furkan. These guys are all playing against a title contender, against the current champions, and it was just really something to watch, and such a big shot for Tobias, just for this
Mm.
moment. Like, we really back in the process years, there was so much sentimentality to certain losses, certain wins when we really needed them. That shot by Tobias does a lot for the process soul, and
Mm.
how much we've given to this team, and how much shit we've talked about the contract, and how much shit we've heard other fan bases talk about the decisions, the front office dysfunction, everything. that Tobias Harris shot, I let out a visceral yelp, and I really needed that one to go in after they completely blew it. I am really, really satisfied with that win, and finally, we can say we beat a legit good team with their full roster. And I've got some observations about the game and about the team in general, but just really good vibes all the way around. Got to soak in it, marinate in it. January has always been the Sixers month, and they closed it out right, boys. They closed it out
We
right.
got a couple more games left, I think. I think we got 2 more games in January. Let's see if they can finish the month strong. That'd be something.
We're due for a letdown in a little bit, but hey, man, let's enjoy it while it's here. That was amazingly sweet.
Yeah.
The defense of the Sixers is there were a couple fluky plays in there during like the 13-0 run or whatever, like that.
That LeBron pass to KCP.
The LeBron pass, and
Joel
then
played perfect defense.
Yeah, that was Joel got switched on to LeBron, and just really like stopped them from getting anywhere near the basket. It took a crazy, wild pass to Schroeder in the corner, and I mean he hits that with a hands in his face. There's not much you can do, but you're right, right that it was a little some non-fouls called on our end. I thought some an offensive foul called on. I think it was Embiid. With like a minute left, that was a tough one. But yeah, you're right.
And then there was that loose ball that rolled right to Caruso. That kind of started it. Like they played great defense, and then it just like rolled his way towards Caruso, so it was wide open for him. But they're very cohesive. I want to say Danny Green, some nice hands, some nice lateral movement out there. Good fundamentals on the defensive end, and then bring in that juice on the offensive end. Bring in the gunner mentality, man. He was honestly great. They needed
him. They needed him for sure.
They have such a roster that like it can survive terrible performances from people, like which was totally not the case the last like 2 seasons, where if you had poor bench play, or you had like a starter like Seth Curry going 1 for 6 and 0 for 3 from 3, like they were doomed. Like they needed everybody to perform really well. But they've gotten with Furkan back and Seth back, they just are so much more deep than they were last year. And you look at the team, I think it's pretty justifiable to like only work the margins at this point. I mean, I think that is the trade deadline. Cream, you would probably know better than I would. When is the trade deadline? February, right?
It's not till it's later this year. I think it's not until March, or it's like the last week of February. It's pushed back a decent bit. On February 6th, all the players that were signed this past year in free agency are eligible to be traded again. And I think it's a month later is the trade deadline. So we still have a bit of time.
Yeah, the 25th. March 25th. So
you have
plenty of time. Yeah, you have plenty of time. 2 months. Okay. I was thinking it was in February, so I was kind of gearing towards like, man,
you're still thinking normal season terms.
The main thing I think at this point is wing defense. Like that kind of seems like the only monster glare. We've spent 2 seasons harping on guards. Oh, can we get a combo guard? Can we find a combo guard? Can we find some shooting? And then boom, JJ Redick's available, and I'm disgusted by the thought of him. And it's like the main person we need is like Wes Matthews or somebody like that who we saw last night. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy of a turn for this roster.
I agree, and we'll see what Daryl Morey does. Obviously a lot to learn over the next two months. A lot of battles this team has got to go through to get to there. I'm excited though, and I think you're right that it's a choice. It's not. I feel like in years past, there's always been a necessity at the trade deadline to try to get something done, to try to improve the roster. Last year we made a couple, shrewd moves, but like very desperate moves to get Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. The year before, obviously the Tobias trade at midnight. This year feels different in that the Sixers kind of have a lot of waiting power. They don't have to make a trade. They don't have to do something like that. So I'm looking forward to like not needing a trade come the trade deadline. That's going to be a nice feeling.
They have the type of team where when the pieces, which do make sense and fit on paper, when they work, it looks great and it looks like it does work and should work and everything makes sense. And when they play poorly, that necessity for adding that 3-and-D or whatever type of player, you think should be added, the 4, solid defensive or swing 5, a guy who can stretch the floor at the 5 because Dwight and Ben can't play together. Whatever you're targeting, you're right. It's something supplementary and complementary where it's not necessary. So we'll see with the Sixers team. Just some quick observations about this team. Ben obviously has turned it on a little bit. And, if he can continue to try to just focus on things that he's still relatively good at, like, at least getting to the free throw line, like instead of the things that he really is just not going to do, which is shooting. I see that as an improvement. Just a quick thing about Ben.
He had a great game last night. I mean, 39 minutes. He played really well. We credit where credit's due. Only 1 turnover, 10 assists. Got that triple dub. Was aggressive in the first half. I'm just, for all the, real criticisms that we've had of Ben this year, when the lights came on last night, he really stepped up, I thought.
Yeah, and the other thing that I noticed is Ben, with these guys on this team, other than I would say Tyrese Maxey, like Dwight Howard, 17-year NBA veteran Dwight Howard is the bounciest, most athletic guy that Simmons has ever played with. Like Simmons as a crazy athlete has never had a Sixers player, in my opinion, that was like good enough and was a crazy athlete. Maybe, he never played with Jeremy Grant. I'm trying to think of the guys, but
I think he played a couple games with Jeremy Grant.
Just a weird observation.
I might be wrong.
Just a weird observation of when him and Dwight can sometimes link up for an oop, and you're like, God, if we just had some Springer, like imagine like Miles Bridges with like Ben Simmons. That would be just a player like that, So anyway, that was just one weird observation. Second thing, Creamy, I'm a little idiosyncratic, and game-winning celebrations. They're fun. They're great times. Yes. Ben Simmons on this game-winning celebration after they got the stop and they're getting ready to gas up Tobias. He's clearing everybody out and he's going with the 2-hand push. The pushback of like you're trying to hype the guy up, but you're pushing him, man. And I got to tell you, that's just not really my go-to celebration for the hype beast moment. I'd like to kind of bring him in. I'd like to kind of mob him. I don't want to.
Well, no, we know what you like. We know what you like, Jake. It's smacking somebody as hard in the chest as you possibly can. That is what you like.
But Ben was like clearing him out. He couldn't even get mobbed by the squad because Ben wanted that dap after the 2-hand push. But listen, celebrations for game-winning shots. I hope we see a couple more. We haven't seen one in a long time with the Sixers team, and it felt great.
That was a good one, and that was a good one.
I didn't know we were podcasting with Jake mobbed by the squad Klein. That's all he's here for, is getting the mob by the squad.
That's the way to do it. Walk-off home run style, boy.
Yeah, Kendrick Morales style. when the weight of the squad shatters your leg. That was not quite the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
The chemistry here, I would say, as long as there's just positive energy, man, they can do whatever they want. If they wanna punch him in the face out of celebration, then and Tobias likes that most, then let's do it. I'm all for it.
Hopefully they talk about these things, and their safe words and all that when they're ready to get really hyped. So
you know what we don't have, actually? I saw a compilation. They say LeBron is among a savant of other things. He is a handshake savant, and he was in Cleveland, and he like casually walked up to Kevin Love, and they did like a 8-second coordinated handshake that they used to do like 3 years ago, and they both just knew it right off the top of their head. And then I was like going through the comments, and people were like, it's funny that he does that with somebody that he's not a teammate with anymore. And they're like, well, he kind of remembers them for everybody. And then somebody put like a super clip of him just like doing like 9 different handshake combos with 9 different people. And I was like, we don't have that here at all. We need some more of that.
Yeah.
We need some
We
cool
do not.
like finger lock, popping, lock, and dropping handshake going, dude.
Who is the dude that did it with Westbrook? Campaign. We got to get Campaign on a 2-way for our 18th roster spot to improve the handshaking. That's a good call, Raymond.
He's playing too well for the Suns. He's actually
that's true.
In their rotation pretty heavily.
That's good for him. Good for him.
Good for him. Not just handshakes. Deeper than a handshake.
I mean, he's bringing a lot to the table nowadays. That's amazing.
But that is one thing. So my vote is less mob, more dap. I'm more dap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think with the pandemic, maybe less daps overall. I think
let us live. Let us live for a second.
Fantasy. He literally wants us. He literally wants us to live. That's why he's.
I think the Sixers are just trying to keep everybody safe. I actually applaud their celebration style.
Their lack of dappage.
Safety is the number one important thing. Yeah, I like it.
All right. Do we have too much on the team? I mean, it's kind of it's uncharted territory. The team is stable. They're healthy. They don't have any glaring weaknesses. The coaching rotations make sense. What do you got here, Craig?
Well, I think there are a couple of things around the edges. I think Dwight Howard has been, after starting the season off great, has been actually quite bad the last like week or so. Obviously, the Detroit game, which didn't really happen, doesn't count. Obviously, doesn't count. But when he has to play heavy minutes, it's a disaster. The dude is turning it. He averages the 3rd most turnovers on the team, despite averaging like the 8th most minutes. And he's just a foul machine at this point. I think he needs time on the bench, kind of recalibrate the Lakers. Dwight in there, he got a little too excited to start the season. I think that might be it. He's been bad. And then also, I want to ask you guys a question, because after, the offseason, all the moves, we came into the year thinking that this would be a more stable team, that this would be, that they wouldn't be as volatile as they have been in years past. And that's kind of what we're getting. I'm wondering if this is just like par for the course, and this is a team that come playoff times, the talent across the roster isn't like super high, or do you feel that this team is drastically different than where you felt it was to start the season? Because I think we all had fairly reasonable expectations into the season, maybe like a 3 seed, 2 seed if we're, if things break right, if we stay healthy. Where do you feel about this team now, just in terms of the hierarchy and like talent-wise heading into the playoffs?
The difference is the level Joel has played at this year. That's the difference to me. That's what separates me going into the season thinking that they can still get bounced in the second round or maybe squeak into the conference finals, to now thinking in a matchup with Brooklyn, this thing can go 7. And I believe that because of Joel Embiid's play, and everything else, makes a little bit more sense. There's more space. It feels good. But Joel Embiid is the reason why I think slightly differently than the beginning of the year, the potential for this organization.
Sure.
I like our odds in a series against Brooklyn. I would have more worry about the Bucks probably, even though people have been kind of down on them this season, because they still have size, they still have scoring, and they have good bigs with Giannis and Brook Lopez. So it's less, or it's more people to throw at Embiid, who is clearly the catalyst of the entire thing for our success. So I would almost rather see Brooklyn in a conference championship, how things stand right now. Obviously, if they go make some moves to round out their front court a little better, or they, can, trade like a second or something and get a usable big or get some more wing depth, they might be more threatening. But the matchup that I actually like is, seeing DeAndre Jordan on Joel Embiid at tip-off. That's a pretty tasty matchup come playoff time.
If you get
everything else would be pretty shaky, but yeah.
So we're feeling good.
Overall, feeling pretty good.
Jake, you had some NBA bets you wanted to discuss. The bets that you made, you got to be feeling pretty good about them.
Yeah, this is not CNBC. We have nothing to say about the other markets, but the sports betting market, we do have some things to say. The beginning of the NBA season, I placed some wagers, make things a little bit more interesting.
I have actually. Can I cut you off on this?
Absolutely.
On your little jokester right there. the GameStop of sports. Who is that? Who is the dying dinosaur franchise that's about to move cities, that has a terrible owner and is just getting boosted through the roof at random? Who is it? The Kings? Is it the Jaguars? Is it
the Reds? The
who?
Washington team?
What?
The Washington team?
You think that's them? Who's the dinosaur of?
I mean, they made the playoffs last year.
They made the playoffs.
They were bad. They were horrible on offense. I think that's every reason to fail, except that they were in a dog shit division. I think that might be the pick. I think that's a pretty good. That checks a decent amount of boxes.
All right.
The Washington
just getting propped up, by that awful division.
Yeah, because that's the angle you got to go for, Cream. The completely fabricated prop up. Like, they made the playoffs, but it's completely
a dying store. Yeah.
I think that might be it. Yeah.
All right, we'll go with that. Jacob, I hate to cut you off. Keep going.
No, that's all right. I'm derailed often in my personal life, so having it on the pod is, par for the course at this point. The first of the bets that we had was involving the Toronto Raptors. We haven't really talked about much of the league on this pod. That's because it's Philadelphia Central. But the Raptors have been in that list of hated teams these past couple years. Obviously, the trauma of the shot that shall not be named. They're right up there with the Celtics for me, and probably Miami. These teams that I detest matching up against them. So the Raptors not to make the playoffs. That was the bet. The odds were.
So, you got to give context of the timing,
right?
You got to give context of the timing because it was December 22nd, right? You made
December 22nd. The opening night of the NBA season is when this bet was placed. The odds were plus 550. Put down $3, trying to clean up with a crisp $20 bill, maybe with Harriet Tubman on it. What do you guys think about that bet? The Raptors, obviously, everybody says good profile, good coach, good organization. They're going to make the playoffs. You're dumb for doing this. What do we think now?
I would have said you're dumb for doing this. I was thinking, who'd they lose? They lost to Baca, and then they brought in.
They lost Gasol too.
They lost Gasol, but they brought in Baines and Len, right? And they were a 3 seed last year, so it's like, is that drop-off worth 6 seeding places? I would have said no. I would have said
no.
I would have said they made the playoffs.
And here they sit, 7-11. They are, I think, 11th in the conference. They're tied for 11th with Charlotte. But they're only 2 games back out of the 8th seed.
And they're 5-5 in their last 10.
They're 5-5 in the last 10. I'm worried about that for you, Jake.
I'm worried about it. The Knicks are in spiral. They're 3-7.
Yeah.
They were the number 1 seed, right? Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I gotta go with the institution. I think Nick Nurse is gonna right the ship. I think you're losing that one.
Yeah,
I think that might be it. It was a long shot when you made it.
Yeah.
And it's why you made it. Unless there's a major injury, I mean, that team's got too many good players, I think. And the teams ahead of them, I just don't. I mean, Orlando's ahead of them, who don't have a point guard. The Knicks are ahead of them, and then Charlotte is right there. I just don't see those teams. And wait, I do have to question: is it like? Do them qualifying in the play-in game, does that count? Like, because that's something completely different that we're not used to this year.
That's the fine print here,
That's
fellas.
the fine print. Because they could get... Go ahead.
Team needs to be a part of the playoff field after play-in games have concluded.
Oh, Jake.
The fine print, fellas.
They're going to be in the top, 10? They're going to be in the top 10, and they're going to win the play-in game.
Okay. Anyway, they're one Kyle Lowry trade away from this being absolute money just ready to be printed. Anyway, I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Okay.
Print the Tubmans.
Okay. Here we go. Now, Cream says he doesn't want to talk about this topic. Oh, boo-hoo. The mainstream media is talking about it, so we're going to talk about
the MSM.
The MVP race. Cream alluded to it earlier. He was chomping at the bit to talk about it, even though he said he didn't want to talk about it. And my wager, fellas, was a whopping $1 to win $13 on a one LeBron James to win the MVP award at plus 1,200. Fellas, the two top MVP contenders just went against each other. How do we feel about this wager?
I think you got to feel pretty good. I think that LeBron James is stock you kind of always want to have. And this is I can't believe he came in at plus 1,200. And the fact that he's doing this in year 18 is amazing. But he has shown zero signs of slowing down. He looks amazing. I think the Lakers are going to finish with the best record by a mile. That is some really good stuff to have.
I have to jump in. I'm sorry. This was placed January 9th, 2021. So pretty, not that long ago. He's heated up.
Long. I mean, that was only like 2 weeks into the season. That was a pretty...
Right.
But
you know what we didn't discuss? We didn't discuss the push.
Oh, the push.
Push
around the world.
What do you want to say about it?
I want to say it's disgusting and I hate it.
They should throw him out of the league.
Yeah.
Should ban the team.
He should be stripped of his previous MVPs.
Wow.
That's a good one.
The fall was pretty gnarly, but man, I would say it deserved a flagrant, and you gotta kind of draw the line somewhere. I think that was what you get, and I'm not going to get too worked up about it, but you definitely know LeBron gets cut a little slack there.
For sure, but he's not. I don't think he's a dirty player. I don't think he didn't like fully extend. He didn't like, he just extended his arms a little bit. It wasn't like anything massive to me. In the moment, I didn't think it was a flagrant 2 in any of the plays. I never thought it would be upgraded. I just, that's a flagrant 1. Sure, it's a dangerous play, and they should try to officiate those out of the game, but it didn't seem like anything crazy. Now in the game, I don't know if you stayed watching ESPN after the game. After Ed Davis just absolutely took a axe swing at Kelly Oubre's head. That earned him a flagrant 2, and he was promptly ejected. That was an ejection. Like, that was an ejection where he wind up, completely missed the ball, got nowhere near it, just right into Kelly Oubre's head, with no warning, no rhyme or reason. Just, it was bad. Like, when I see those 2 plays, you can tell that there's a clear distinction between the 2. I didn't think that was, and it's weird. And I know why Joel's doing it, because he's trying to, he does get officiated differently than other players in the league, obviously, because he's so aggressive. But I didn't think it was anything worth pursuing.
He didn't want to get dunked on. He shouldn't have done it. and
Yeah,
like
he
it
shouldn't have
was scary in real time, and he should let's make sure he gets right. Send him a couple games. I don't care. Thank God he got back up, and let's move forward.
He was much less effective afterwards. But it doesn't. Ray, feel free to chime in on this, but that seems more like a stinger, something that hurts in the moment, but minimal long-term damage. What's your
I
thought
mean,
on the actual injury?
it just depends. It depends how long it depends if you bruised soft tissue or bone. That's
Mm,
kind of the main thing. So a stinger is not the right term to use for that. Stinger is a
okay.
nerve injury in
Oh,
your
I see.
neck. Like when guys in football get stingers, that's because they stretch like the brachial plexus in their neck, and it sends like pins and needles down their arm, and they can't feel their arm anymore.
Mm,
That's what Jordan Howard had last season. That kept him out for like a month. Um, this was probably just as long as nothing's broken, like no fracture in the bone. The main timeline of coming back and how painful it is going to be whether it bruised like muscle tissue or if it bruised the actual bone, because bones can take three plus weeks to get rid of a bruise. A bone
mm,
bruise sounds nondiscreet, but it can kind of linger a long time. You can have a achy bone bruise for like 5 weeks, where if it's on like the butt, like the glute muscle or like the back muscles, it'll hurt probably just as significantly in the short term, but it'll linger far less time. They
mm.
tend to heal up faster from bruising. So that's kind of the main thing. So it could be something where he misses a couple games and it's just pain tolerance and he's playing through it relatively fine. But if it is a bone bruise, I mean, it could legitimately hurt him for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and we don't know. They haven't said anything, but they did mark him as questionable for tomorrow night's game. So interesting that it basically rules out that they don't think that there's anything drastically wrong with him, that they would outright have him sit. So it seems to be relatively good news.
Alrighty, ready for this last wager there, fellas?
I'll
Let's
say
push.
this. I'll say this. I'm watching the Ed Davis Flagrant 2, and it's some good 90s defense. It's a
It's
straight
some tough
elbow to the
basketball.
temple. It's a straight
Yeah,
elbow to the temple. Good
yeah.
basketball.
This is
That's a soft regular foul in 92.
bad.
All right, Jacob, go ahead.
Last bet here, guys. This one, again, was taken at the beginning of the year, and that would be your Philadelphia 76ers. This bet was placed December 7th, 2020, weeks before the first game. Feeling confident at plus 900, put $5 down to win 50 on the Philadelphia 76ers to win the Eastern Conference.
Mm.
To make the finals. This was before any James Harden movement. This was before any Washington
We
Wizards.
saw the teams before you saw the team, really.
Way before even the
you might
first
have
week.
honestly thought James Harden would be in the red and blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So what do you think about that?
I love the bet. I think you're getting it.
I think it's good. It's great value. One, I think it's a coin flip. I think the Sixers are right there. There's a couple other teams. Obviously, we'll see what the Heat do if they can round into form. We'll see where Bradley Beal goes, of course, if he stays put or not, and then. But I think you have to feel as good as any team in the East that we have a decent shot of getting out of it. And with and with the best record comes all the perks. Having home court advantage, having that the seeding advantage that we haven't had in years past would be a massive advantage. If we can hold the season together and finish as a top seed, that would be massive. And I think you got to feel pretty good about that bet, Jacob.
Raymond?
The thing about you brought up Bradley Beal, like, man, he's not getting moved. Like, I don't get how they could move him right now. Like, you have so much time left on his deal. Like, if he if he is getting moved this year after like a bad season and a half, where the franchise is kind of falling apart a little bit. Like they were bad last year, but the years before that they were pretty competitive. And like a bad season and a half, and he's already like demanding a trade. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous to be honest. Especially with like 2 seasons left on his deal. Um, I think the Wizards have no inclination to move him, so I don't think he's headed to some Boston mega trade or something where I'd be pretty surprised if they're moving him. I don't know if you guys disagree or not.
Let me give you a couple of stats. Let me give you 2 facts. One, in 2018-19, the Wizards were 32-50. Last season, they were 25-47, and this year they're 3-11. That's 3 seasons of just god-awful basketball. And let me hit you with another stat that I find incredible. The last 10 times that Bradley Beal has scored 40 points or more, the Washington Wizards have lost.
Is that an indictment on him or the team?
I think that's a massive indictment on the team. I think that shows that there's really nothing he can do to make that a winning team. I don't see, and you say there's nothing they can do, but like, what is he doing on that team? They're the worst team in the league right now. They can't. They literally can't get any worse.
What are the Suns' records with Devin Booker?
What are the Suns' records with Devin Booker? Well, Devin Booker was a younger player.
Yeah,
Bradley Beal.
My thing is though, like he signed a 3-year deal last year. Like, you got your max money. You signed your 3-year deal. Like, what did he think was happening? He signed that deal post John Wall Achilles injury. Like, I don't know where we're at with,
So he's actually only under contract for this season, next season, and then he has a player option. So it's really only a year and a half.
Okay.
So it is he matches up with Harden, the Harden contract. So it is, the clock is ticking. He only has 1 more year of guaranteed team control. So there is a little bit of iffiness. I would say that for me, if Washington could get a high pick in this year's draft, if they could get the Minnesota pick from Golden State, I think that they should probably jump on that because this draft looks pretty good. And if you got 2 top 10 picks in it, that's a good way to start your jumpstart your rebuild because they need a top to bottom rebuild.
Do they have their own first, or did they get rid of it in the Wall trade?
No, they still have their first for this year. I think it was next year's pick, and I think it's protected.
Okay.
So it's not that shouldn't be a massive concern.
I bet if I were to place my money, I would say he's moved in the offseason.
That's probably fair. And it's probably true also that he wouldn't get moved to the Eastern Conference. I just want to, that could change things.
Yeah. I love the bet, though. Sixers making the finals.
Absolutely.
They're clearly headed in the right direction. I think they're above. I think they're above anybody else right now. And I want to see Brooklyn.
Nice.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Are we good, Jake?
We're good on these bets questions, and boy, you guys got anything to say about these Sixers? Anything else you got to get off your chest before we talk again?
No, I'm done.
Bring me PJ Tucker.
All right.
Deliver him the Cream's mailbox. The next topic, JT Realmuto back, baby.
Ow, ow.
What a turn of events, man. I thought he was I thought I was gonna have to pick him up at the Atlanta airport. That guy was out of town for months, it seemed like. My question is, did the Dombrowski hire save this acquisition because it really was the signaling for months was, tax relief and salary cap issues, the pandemic, we aren't going to go in spending big money. And then all of a sudden we settle on a 5-year, $115 million deal. And it's deferred. I think it's deferred in the first year where he gets like a couple extra years of money on the back end, but then he's getting paid around, the mid-20s for the next several seasons after that. It seems people have been giving the old regime credit. They're like, to be honest, not signing him was low-key the right move because he was seeking 200 plus. Like they saved probably $80 million by waiting this out, and he came back around and they got him for really good years. They're going to have him until he's like 34, and they're going to have him
right in the sweet spot where you wanted him.
Right where you wanted him.
Agent catcher, yeah.
Yeah, and they're getting him for about 23 a year. So it's super good value for them, and you didn't trade your number one prospect and your only top 20 prospect for a season and a third of no playoff baseball. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is the big news. Yeah, I mean, I think this has worked out really well for the Phillies. I will say, due to very little of their own maneuvering and skill, I think that they just kind of lucked into this. The market really dried up very quickly for JT. He didn't have a lot of alternatives, and the Phillies get their guy back, and Bryce is happy, and I'm happy, and I hope JT's happy too because this would have been a real blow to the fan base had this not gone through. I was pretty down in the dumps about it, but I'm ecstatic that they were able to get it through, and it's nice to have him on the roster for a couple more years. Like that's awesome.
So you're sitting here looking at a lineup that's still a bit in flux. I was reading a little bit about their situation today, and you obviously have your main. There's pieces of this deal that are fantastic, where you have a core of Bohm, Realmuto, and Harper of at least 5 seasons of being a third of your lineup. But outside of that, you have Hoskins, who's going to be up for a new deal. Kingery caught COVID last season during spring training, I believe. He had a terrible year. So you're banking on a bounce back, but you don't know what you have with him. Segura's been underwhelming as a Philly, to be honest, compared to his production previous. And then you're sitting here with Didi as a free agent. And, obviously the DH has not come to the NL at this point. So you're still sitting with a pitcher. So your lineup, which was remarkable, I shouldn't say it was legendary or anything, but you had a great lineup last year that hit really well top to bottom and had Bohm at the DH. It's looking significantly weaker without any real pitching acquisitions yet. So they have work to do. It looks like Didi is commanding about $15 million a year. I don't know how many years he wants. It might be another 1-year deal. Who knows? They paid him, I think, 14 last year. But
I think the Phillies, the buzz on the Phillies is that they really only want to give 1 year because they want to chase a big free agent shortstop next year, next offseason. There are a few that are really a few stars that are going to hit the market, and the Phillies want to be in play for those guys. So it's really it's a waiting game between Didi and the Phillies.
Who is that? Like Carlos Correa or something? Like who's?
Francisco Lindor, obviously, we assume that he's going to stay with the Mets. But the Cubs, Javi Baez, he's going to be a free agent. And there are a couple of more who are escaping me. Let me just find it. But it's basically coming down to a staring contest with the Phillies and Didi. There aren't really any other teams that are going to pay for a free agent shortstop, and there aren't really any other free agent shortstops that the Phillies can really go after. So it seems like a matter of when, not if, with this deal. But we'll see what comes down to it. But yeah, that's just what it is right now.
JT was huge, but DD was so consistent last year. He strikes me as the type of guy that can kind of mask, some of the stench and really, not bring the lineup to the amount of, how potent it was last year, but can just be very consistent and, can be switched within the lineup to turn it over, if you need something different. I would really love to see him back here, like a 2-year 25 something or a big 1-year fat deal, a Reddick special.
Yeah, I got some names. Like you said, I said Javier Baez, Francisco Lindor, Marcus Seaman, Corey Seager, Carlos Correa. Seems like a pretty...
Seaman is signed with Toronto.
That's I have him as a free agent after next season.
Was it a 1-year deal? Wow.
Yeah, 1 year, 18. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, he's kind of a weird player because he had one season a year ago where he was like third in MVP voting, and then has been like a pretty average player outside of that. So like a 1-year deal kind of makes sense for him actually because you don't really know what you're getting.
Yeah, but so there's going to be a couple shortstops on the market next summer that obviously the Phillies feel better about than giving a guy like DD a long-term deal. There aren't a lot of moves that the Phillies have made that really have improved their roster over last year. Like you said, Ray, the starting pitching is exactly the same. They got like one bullpen guy. And just with the moves that the Mets made, how good the Braves look, the Mariners are suddenly competent and like legitimate competition. It's tough to feel great about the Phillies team, even though we all love the JT signing. We all love to see him back. There's not a lot of
It's not even a signing where like you're jumping through hoops. It's just like the basic like asset retention. Like that is such a bad trade if you don't keep him for more than a season and a half, a season and a third. 60 games last year. Like it was purely like the only reason you don't keep him is avoiding tax money, which is just like despicable. So they're still such a flawed team, and like Dombrowski is definitely going to be an upgrade, I would think, but
there's only so much he can do in one off season with limited spending power. Not a great farm system. You got a couple question marks with Hoskins and Kingery. There's not like he's not a miracle worker. He's not going to turn us into a World Series contender overnight.
Yeah, it's the same Phillies frustration that we've had coming into last year. So I don't know, Jake. Do you have any final words on this?
No, I mean, that's huge, though. Like, getting JT and settling that, that was the biggest thing that had to be done for a myriad of reasons. So you did that. We'll talk about you later, Phillies. You don't get any airtime right now.
Okay. Last thing, Super Bowl pick.
Yes.
Actually, I guess we could wait because the game won't be. We'll just if you want to give a pick, we'll give a pick. We'll give a pick. Jeez.
We'll talk about it more in depth next week, but let's.
Jeez.
Let's do it.
I had one half of the Ray Styles parlay hit, which was Bills Bucks.
I think we all split, right? Or Jake, what did you have?
I had Chiefs Packers. Yeah.
I think we all split.
Your Chiefs Packers? I thought you took the Ravens. You liar.
Oh, that was like my fun throwaway pick a while back.
I don't know.
Who'd you have?
Who'd you have?
I had the Chiefs, and I think I think I had like the Seahawks, which looks really bad in hindsight. But I got the Chiefs right, which was the easy part.
So I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I got to ride with the squad. take the half of the bracket that I got right. So
Okay. Jake, who do you got?
Yeah, the money's on the Chiefs. My money's on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to deliver, so it's going to be the Chiefs.
banged up O-line.
Yeah, I feel I'm actually it's worrying how low the line is for me with the Chiefs. I think it's only like 3.5.
They're on the
I think
road.
it
They're
should be
on the
close.
road.
They are technically on the road.
Fuck out of here.
I was wondering. I was talking with my roommate. Are they gonna like be in the visiting locker room? The Bucks have to be in the visiting locker room, right? Because the Chiefs have the better record. I think. How is that decided?
Oh, I don't know. That would be weird. That would almost be an advantage for the Chiefs because that's like with
I
Brady.
feel like too much of an advantage for the Bucks because they didn't have the. They had clearly the worst record, the worst seeing. Like I think you got to give the Chiefs the home, stay. I don't know.
What I'm saying is
That's one of your best takes.
The Chiefs getting
Yeah.
getting to use the home locker room at Raymond James Stadium is a huge advantage because Brady, is a mojo guy, and being at home but being put in the weird away locker room that you've never been in before at your home stadium is definitely a mojo breaker.
I agree.
That's one of the
I
best.
think there are other advantages to being, that you don't have to travel. You can sleep in your own bed. That's definitely an advantage for the Tampa players for sure. But I still I'm pushing the Chiefs pretty hard. They look pretty unstoppable. But I think I feel good about this game because I think we're going to get a really good game because I think the Bucks and Tom Brady are smart enough to know that like can't be out here kicking. You can't send out the punt unit. You can't send out the kick field goal unit. You got to just go for 7 every time. I think that's the only way to match up with this high-powered Chiefs offense is just to do what the Eagles did a few years ago and just like try to put up 41. That's got to be the strategy. So I'm excited. I think we're going to get a really good Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. And it's funny that -3 line, it's essentially the Chiefs being 6-point favorites because if you're actually counting like your standard -3 at home, the Chiefs being favored in this game by 3. So it's how much value you want to put in it. It's how much value you want to put in it. If it was a neutral, if they were playing in Detroit,
right?
Do you think that the Chiefs are 6.5 point favorites?
Yeah,
I would. That's where I would put it. But we'll see. We'll see.
So, all right. I'm going with the Bucks. They are funny. I was looking at the stats right here. Tampa third in points scored versus the Chiefs at 6th, and 8th in points allowed versus the Chiefs at 10th. How about that?
Wow.
So they actually score more points and they give up less. That sounds like a winning formula to me.
Clearly the better team. I mean, that is the net rating Bucks right there. Yeah. I like it.
Plus 12 on the season or whatever it was. So, all right.
I like it.
Thank you all for listening. This has been the EJP. What a week. What a weird situation we find ourselves in. Thank you all for listening. Bye.